Hello everyone. So today we're going to talk about the topic concerning flow in parkour. Some time ago this was considered the elusive pinnacle in parkour. By today there are several other aspects that makes up to the pinnacle of parkour. So such as the gap of the jump, both in terms of the length and the depth. Even flips is now generally accepted as an aspect in parkour. A matter that ages ago it was a topic of great contention. This area I hope to cover more about the rest in the future. But now back to the topic at hand, which is what is flow in parkour terms. So it's basically the capacity to transit from one movement to the next seamlessly and seemingly effortlessly. So athletes would call it the zone, or some martial artists the void. I covered prior in the meditation video about the Taoist concept Wu Wei, is the idea of effortless effort. So why is this so important? Because the founder of Taoism, Lao Tzu, had a reputation of riding the wind, of being so light, or rather, he had that sense of weightlessness. Of course, this expounds beyond just the physical aspects, but to stay on course for parkour, we are going to focus on just the physical aspect alone. In the opening line of his Bible, otherwise known as 道德经, is 道之道非常道. Translate as the Dao that can be described is not the eternal Dao. So Dao is loosely being translated from Chinese to English as the path or the way. How does this translate or relate to parkour, you might ask? Basically, learning flow involves first learning the techniques and then unlearning them. What do I mean? Techniques are first learned so they are equipped with the know-how, and then the unlearning process sets in during application, where you might start off with a planned route. But as always, things don't always go as you planned, and you have to adapt and adjust accordingly without breaking the flow. If you happen to be in a position for you to execute the move you want, awesome. But if not, do your best to set up towards it without being too hard up about it, because it will break your flow if you do so. So the following is my hypothesis, but I feel that there are 7 types of flow. Namely, number 1, moving from point to point with intent. Number 2, weaving from point to point. Number 3, weaving at a specific spot. Number 4, bar flow. Number 5, hyper-technical flow. Number 6, ground movement flow. And number 7, tricking flow. To better convey these ideas, I will elaborate further with examples. And first up, moving from point to point with intent. So in this case, I am moving from one point to the next and making my way back. So here is one where I missed the mark concerning flow. So here's the example of the difference between making a perfect run versus missing the mark. You can see that there are definite pause within this run that ruins the intent of the flow, and it happens no matter how well practiced you are. The judgment to go again or not will, when you miss the mark, really depend on how do you feel at the moment, whether you're up for it. That sensitivity to your bodily kinesthetic intelligence comes from experience, developed over time through practices. So next, we have weaving from point to point. As you can see, it's pretty much like the first example, that I'm making my way to a specific space, but not taking the most direct route. Rather, I'm weaving around the space as I make my way to the intended point and making my way back with the move as if in a rush, but not in the most efficient means. And it still contains a flow. Up next, we have weaving at a specific spot. So this invokes my favorite description about a space as a canvas and you are the brush, while your move is the ink that paints your masterpiece. This captures the meaning of parkour as the art of motion, and as with every artist, you carry your own flavor of movement signature that is distinctly yours. Reflective of all your training at that point in time, the way you draw the lines that others can't, or even if they can, not with the similar movement signature as you would carry. So next we have the bar flow. Very much similar to the prior, where you're weaving at a specific designated space. I love the bar flow as a form of meditation because it's so easy to find bars everywhere, at least here in Singapore. Moreover, the only limitation is your imagination. A simple bar can allow you to do so much movement, not to mention if it's merely one of the fixtures in the space. I feel that there is also one of the easiest means for you to capture the concept of flow, because it's relatively simple structure that offer you so much to work with. Now the following two types of flow are areas in which I work on, but I'm still rather weak at. So the first up is the hyper-technical flow. Despite how it looks, no, it's not just a combination of structural and bar flow. Rather, there is a more focus on otherwise awkward movements, crossing hurdles or even landing at tight, narrow spaces such as vertical bars, tight tin holes. So as such, to successfully land in such spaces, it requires much more technical equipment to walk off unscathed. So up next, we have the ground flow. So this type of flow is mainly focused on ground-based movement, but it's not limited to it. This requires relatively high bodily kinesthetic intelligence of not just your regular range of motion, but more importantly, an acute comfort with how your body can twist, avoid breaking flow and momentum through the expanded range of motion. In this case, the obstacle is avoid empty space, an environment that is most disadvantageous to a parkour practitioner, because this isn't a means to set us apart from a lay sportsman or a dancer. Finally, we have the tricking flow. Much like prior, this type of flow seeks to conquer the nature of a void, empty space in an environmental setting. Now I have to set a disclaimer. Especially for flips, I have only been training on-off gradually for over 10 years, and that only started mainly in my adult years. Hence, it is by no means my forte. I started working on it because I realized there's a kink in my body armor, hindered by philosophical ideals of the day, that parkour purists shouldn't involve themselves with flips. Now that concept has gradually eroded over the years until it has nearly become a bygone thought by today. So especially so, now with the understanding that training flips is essential for you to increase your air awareness, a matter that I'll elaborate further in the How to Fall or Yukimi video coming up. Well, eventually, then I get down to it at least. So now, as stated at above, I wasn't really sure where my stamina in this aspect of line. As such, I didn't really have the understanding of as to where or how to end that specific flow. So with that, I can show you what is movement without flow, because you are simply exhausted, or you lack the expertise, or merely haven't really grasped the concept of what flow. There you go.
My internet thing was bigger than anybody's.
So as you can see, I look like a deer in the headlights, desperately seeking for means to continue moving, but I have no idea what I'm doing or how I'm gonna end the run with a shout of Parkour! Yeah?
Parkour!
So with that example, it shows how one is desperately trying to achieve flow for the aspect, but there's still so much more to be done. So no matter which type of flow you intend to do, how exactly do we achieve an effective flow? I hear you ask. Well, then we will need to talk about planning out your effort through the effort matrix. Now, if you don't know what I mean by the effort matrix, please refer to the effort matrix video for more clarification. Now back to planning flow, there are 3 ways of distributing effort, and I'm going to depict them using graphs. So here we're going to show 3 types of flow examples that you can use for your training. So on the Y, so as if typical every other graph, there is a Y and a X-axis. Yeah. On the Y-axis, you have the effort matrix, which is representative of technical moves that are very strenuous to you in nature, because they teeter at the edge of your breaking jump as the higher you go, and then the lower is of course your state of rest. Action or moves over time is your X-axis, where is a number of actions that you take gradually as this line proceeds along. Yeah. So the first type of the first type of flow that we're going to talk about is where you start off right with your breaking jump or moves that is highly intensive for you, and then you gradually, as you move along the line, as you gradually do your flow, you slowly level down into over time. Yeah. So you start off with about 80 to 90%, depending on how intensive you are comfortable. Yeah, and then gradually it goes down to about 70 to 80% of the workout, and then and over time you kind of like level down, and you kind of like end off with about 50 to 70% of effort. Yeah, so that's where your workout kind of like gradually comes to a stop, but your heart rate is still high. The second type of flow that we're going to talk about, you start off with your pre-workout or your state of rest, which is about say 30 to 50%, okay, and you gradually slowly begin to put in more effort, and then you kind of like gradually do your flow, and then you kind of build up to the high point of about perhaps even your breaking jump point, and then it kind of like levels down suddenly into almost nearly back to your state of rest. So this type of flow, an example of this type of flow is your plyometric jump, or a series of plyometric jump, or plyo for short, where you kind of like end off with the move that is right at the edge of your capability. So you start off with about 50%, and then gradually you heat up to about even 90 or perhaps even 100% if you give it your all, because you build up momentum over time to finish up that move and you stick it. Yeah, and then you kind of like fall back down into your workout state whereby you're still breathing heavily. The type of flow that I'm going to talk about is the meditative flow. It's where the graph looks somewhat like this. So you are moving at about 50 to 70% of effort. Or if let's say you want it to be a more high intensity training where there's a bit more exertion in your workout, then probably you're moving at about 70 to 80% of effort. Yeah, so this is your HIIT workout, and then this is your meditative workout. Yeah, so these are the 3 types of flow method used in your training. Yeah, hope it helps. Moving on, the following are some words for you to bear in mind for you to enter the state of flow. Let go of your earthly tender, enter the void, empty, and become wind. So this is a quote from Guru Lahima in the cartoon of Legend of Korra. So what do I mean? To further expound on it, there's a scene in the movie called The Last Samurai where they are training with bokken, so basically wooden practice sword, where Tom Cruise's character was getting his ass handed to him until a samurai came up to him and said he had too many mind. So you mind the sword, mind the people watching, mind the enemy, too many mind. He needs to have no mind. So basically to hyper focus on the task at hand, where he is, what he is doing, and not be mindful about everything else, to possess a most serious mind. So Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back was reprimanding Luke. All his life he looked away into the future, to the horizon, never his mind on where he is, what he is doing. Now I am no saint, and I fail a lot in that matter, and to say that is really quite an understatement. But to understand flow and to allow it to happen, at least in the bodily kinesthetic sense, you need to do, as I always say in class, be here, be now, be present when you're executing the move. So in closing, exactly how do we attain the state of flow? So these are the following steps. Make sure you have as much technical skills as possible, and that includes vitally your ground movements as transitional techniques. Start off with 2 movements, make it as seamless as you can, as possible, and gradually increase the number of movements and don't rush. Use the Parkour flowchart as a method to plan your distribution of effort, your route or your line as they now would say it these days, the best you can. Rehearse at least a portion of it, if not the full run, a couple of times to get the sense of things. And with that, I hope the above, the thesis that I have created, shed some light and clarification as to how you can create flow. So until the next class, abianto.